According to a McKinsey & Co. report, 1 in 4 women have thought of downshifting or completely leaving the workforce given the current circumstances, something they wouldn't have thought of a year back. Well, today we have the leading ladies of retail from this region who are all in our first ever 50 most influential women in MENA retail list. And today they will be sharing with us some insights on leadership, challenges, and the way forward. Thanks so much for joining us. Isabel, let me start with you first, right? You've been in the retail space since 1975, in Dubai for much longer than that, and in leadership positions for a really long time. What I'd like to know from you is about perceptions of you as a female leader that has changed over the last few years and decades.
I don't think it has changed. I think from when we very first started Magrudi's all those years ago, it seemed that it was perfectly okay to do that. And I think that now the perception is that there are many more visible women in leadership and making decisions. But this is a matriarchal society. So women feature very strongly in all decisions that are made. And I know we'll all agree that most of retail key decisions are made by women customers, female customers, on behalf of the family, on their own decisions. They carry a huge weight.
Of course, 85% of the women statistically make purchasing decisions or they influence the purchases themselves, right? Despite that, only 25% or lesser number of women hold the C-suite positions globally. Anita, can I ask you, considering you've worked across different geographies with Lush Cosmetics and otherwise, and in finance too, why do you think that there is this problem, considering retail is an industry which doesn't really have to be male dominated, unlike certain industries which are attributed to having, a more stronger male populace given the nature?
I mean, I can only talk about my own experience. I'm very lucky I'm from a family-owned business where half of the founders are men and half of the founders are women. So for me, throughout my, I guess, more senior career, I've always been surrounded by female role models. And I think, so to take the message from that is, do you have a female role model in your business that can mentor you, bring you on that journey? I was explaining today, I brought my right-hand PR lady with me. And, it's important to give members of your team exposure to things that maybe only very senior managers get to experience. So I think, mentorship is one. But also, you've got to want to do it. You've got to want to be ambitious. And I think ask for help, lean in. I read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and it is true. If you're invited to meetings, senior meetings, be present, have a voice, have an opinion. Don't wait to always be asked, well, what do you think about this? So I would say, and have confidence in yourself, really. That's what I think about that.
Sure. So that's from, again, an employee and a corporate structure point of view. But even with startups, right? And of course, I'm looking at you now, Mona. With startups, while setting up businesses, we've seen that venture capital funding has been going to more male-led businesses. And again, this is not a man's problem at all, right? It can be from both sides. And I'm just trying to understand what the problem is. Is it because there are lesser number of women that are willing to start their own businesses? We discussed this just a little bit earlier, that there is more of that entrepreneurial spirit here in this region. But globally, when you see in the US, 2.3% of VC funding has gone to women-led startups. In Europe, it's 6%. In this region, surprisingly, it's much higher than that, which is great. But why do you think there is this parity?
I'm not sure about the other places, but for here, we have to take something into consideration. Being a women entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur comes with a lot of sacrifices. And it's a matter of priorities as well. So whenever you want to go into the entrepreneurship, you know that there are sacrifices to be made, there are choices to be made. And as we know, there is, at least here in the region, or I think globally, when we're talking about women, we're talking about a wife, we're talking about a mother. So there are other responsibilities which come into it. So when she's picking up to be an entrepreneur, she knows that she's gonna have to do some sacrifices. And to do those kind of sacrifices, having the partner as well who is understanding and who is helping her to be able to achieve and to go further in her journey is very important. So I'm saying this to give a kind of understanding maybe why there are less of women entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs in terms of taking the project.
For me, there's no difference between women and men. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years, and at the end of the day, it takes passion, it takes a lot of hard work, it takes some sacrifices, but if you love what you do, you don't count them as sacrifices. And third, and this is something that Isabel touched upon, the visibility side, is the networking, the power of networking, of asking for help. We were discussing with Anita just before that I just moved to Dubai 4 months ago after the Beirut explosion, and if it wasn't for the network that I had, I couldn't have pulled up like a project of bringing 15 Lebanese restaurants to Dubai, and like in 2 to 3 months the project is done. We launched yesterday, we're very excited about it, but thank you. And this was thanks to the power of network and asking for help and reaching out, and this is something me 20 years ago I would have never done.
I think to put on that point, I did a really interesting course called Shine for Women, and it was primarily focused at women in business and what maybe things are holding them back, or, you know, it's quite a holistic view actually to look at it. So we were all women, obviously paid for by our work, but actually in a lot of cases it was stuff outside of work as well that was having a big impact on us, or what we wanted to get out of life, I guess. And I think one of the techniques was about the fear ladder. So, you know, we catastrophize in our minds, sort of 10 steps forwards what might happen, but the reality is we only know what the next step is, you know. And I think that's a really great technique for women to think about when they're thinking about doing anything, be it starting a business or going for a promotion or having that conversation with their bosses, not to go 10 steps down what might happen, because you don't know. You don't know.
Especially now with COVID, like we really don't know.
Exactly. And it really made me assess in my life how many things, not that I catastrophized to beyond belief, but how many things, barriers I put up before they're even presented to me.
Yeah.
So I think, but that does come with age and experience and all of those things, but just recognizing that in yourself, that if you're having those doubts, are they real doubts or are they just things that you might think might happen?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good technique.
I would
for
rather
people to
say it
use.
comes with maturity, not age. Of course, no one has.
Let's call it maturity then. All right. With maturity, there are things that, you know, like one, again, a very, very mature entrepreneur that I've been following for a while is, of course, Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. And I was watching this one interview she did long back where she put out a very controversial statement saying that women can't get it all, right? So as controversial as it may sound, her justification did make sense. So basically, if you're a working mom, that's 2 full-time roles in itself, right? Like, because it's a full-time job at work, it's a full-time job at home, back home. So given these circumstances and given, you know, what Mona just mentioned earlier, do you think it is slightly more challenging for women then?
Oh, absolutely. And I totally agree that women can't have it all. It's a choice. But everything we do in life is about choices. So what is most important in your life at that time? You have to choose how you're going to go about things, how much you're going to commit. We only have 24 hours in the day. And the thing about being a mother of 5 children and now a grandmother to 7 wonderful children, they are the most important thing in my life, and they always will be. And they were what drove me to become an entrepreneur, really, because there were things missing. And that's my message really to budding entrepreneurs is, if there is something that you have that is not available where you are, that is the thing to find that niche, to find that thing that you can make your own, that you bring your passion and your knowledge to. And I'm a great believer in gut instinct. I always listen to my gut instinct. I'm not sure whether it's based on experience or whatever, but you have a feeling about things. And the other thing I am is a very difficult customer, and that's very helpful because I know what I expect from the other side of the coin. And, you know, we need to bring that to whatever we're offering in retail. How is it for our customers? So if you're a very easygoing customer, you will put up with more. I'm not an easygoing customer. And I think, again, that helped my insight into what we do. But yes, make choices. Don't regret that you know, years down the line think, well, I wished I had more time with my children, because you can't wind the clock back. You know, and that's a time of your life. You know, I'm going to say that I'm of an age now when I could be sitting at home knitting, but I'm not. I'm still 100% active. So I've had more active entrepreneurship and business acumen since really I was 50 onwards. So a life does not finish. You know, you keep going and you bring that energy and that passion, it won't go away, but make your choices. I totally agree with Muna on that.
Great. So Muna, then coming to you, you spoke about the sacrifices that need to be made, etc. And it's like this whole constant process. But we need to talk about the way forward, right? If you are talking that women have to make more sacrifices, and you've said that, you know, it is difficult for women to have it all and it is more challenging for them, then what can be the way forward to make this path easier? Like, one thing COVID did teach us is flexibility, right? Like, people find a way to work around things. If it's work from home, we could manage to do that. We did blended schools and blended learning at home. So I'm sure there is a way to, you know, to sort of make this process easier for women and encourage more women forward. For you, from a government point of view, and then we'll trickle down, what do you think needs to be done?
I think when there is a will, there is a way, definitely. The first thing is the passion. So whenever you have that passion, you will make it happen. And those kind of sacrifices that I'm talking about would be choices more than sacrifices, as you said, because they were like choices taken. Now, when it comes to the way forward, definitely with the COVID, things went much easier in terms of flexibility. That drove, in terms of the retail, that drove the e-commerce.
Yeah.
And hence there is, and we know the e-commerce is all about being behind the computer, and wherever you are, you can still manage your business.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot of entrepreneurs into the e-commerce, into penetrating the e-commerce sphere and building brands behind the e-commerce, while not really taking them out from their comfort zone. So they would have been able to manage their kids at home with their school and their studies, while being able to build or to manage brands.
Yeah.
So definitely the e-commerce sphere has helped a lot.
Right.
Then I think there are things that come with time. You know, like as an entrepreneur at the first stages, definitely you will have to do everything yourself, you know. Definitely I will not compare it to the 60s.
No, but the point about doing everything yourself is you understand every step of the process. And when someone in your team is not doing it right, you actually can criticize and say, actually, you're not doing it right, because if you don't know, if you are only sort of skating on the top level, you will never have that. So I'm a great believer in that you start yourself, you understand every part of the process, or you go up in terms of, if you're in a large organization, you work your way up, but you never forget.
I think from a government point of view, which is being done, you know, like especially I'm talking about the UAE, where recruitment was quite high at the beginning in terms of expensive, because you have the visas, fees and everything. But I think they got to the point as well where they understood that to be able to help the entrepreneurship in the region or in the UAE, they have to revise some of the costs, which happened, and that helped. Because earlier, you would think, if I'm recruiting someone, I have to invest in advance something. So things are getting much better.
And in the UAE, I think, like you mentioned again, like the UAE government has been making strides in the whole equality aspect. Yes. For example, equal pay that just came about, the decree came about last year. It will be interesting to see how it's implemented. That's going to be quite interesting, but we need to it's great that the start is there.
There was an announcement, I think, today or yesterday about female board members.
Board members,
being at least, you know, it was a target before, and now it's going to become mandatory. I think that is really good. You know, if there's not quick enough progression made in various.
I've always believed she's like me. A little difficult, a little cheeky. So when I can't get her to feel alike, I remember we can exchange it with a smile.
We will exchange anytime, anywhere. Wear a smile. Find yours at Red Tag.
So the point that you mentioned about the recent decree on board members, right? So that reminded me of another point, which is around reservations and quota. And I would like to talk to you about it and question for all of you. But before getting into that, we've seen a lot of these HR management strategies changing to becoming more diverse. And, it has to be absolute diversity in terms of staffing, etc. And I'm not quite sure if that is the right way of management forward. For example, if there is a company of 10 people, when the HR makes a call that, no two nationalities can be the same, the races need to be different, it has to be 50% men, 50% women. From a business point of view, do you think that would work? Which leads me on to quotas and reservations, right? When there is a blanket reservation, for example, in retail, if we know that 85% of purchasing decisions are made by women, do you think the right way forward would be to say that, all general managers of a huge retail conglomerate or 80% of the general managers need to be women? Do you think that would work?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I think we have to choose the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And I'm currently the CEO of the Emirates Literature Foundation, and we are 85% women. Not because we had a mandate, but because actually we have part-timers, we have mothers who pick children up, and we try and be flexible, because I've been there, I know that, and as flexible as possible. But at the same time, we've got some extremely good men, and it is nice to have that. It's actually nice to have a bit of a not complete gender, and different industries demand different maybe gender mixes. But going back to the board quotas, so I sit on 6 boards, and apart from one, there is an almost equal balance of male and female on those boards. One, I'm the only female because there was another female, but she just never came back for whatever reason. And it's quite, actually, if you are in the minority, it's quite good, because you do get your voice heard, because I'm sitting there, surrounded by men, and they don't have a choice but to listen to me.
That's a great position to be in.
It is. So I think I'm not 100% in favour of quotas, but I think if it comes at a government level, it's a very good thing, because it does open the door. It does remove that glass ceiling and allow good choices to be made, as long as someone is not on that board just because they're female. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
But there's
and
a
I don't think
difference
that will
also
happen.
between the boards, like let's say having a quota at the board level, having a woman in, so that they know how it works. As you said, they will hear what she has to say. But then at the management team, or at the end, it's about the talents, it's about the people, like having someone that is not as good because she's a female or because he's a male. I don't think this is the right way to do it. Like in the group that I'm working with, we have men, we have women, but I'm looking for the best in whatever field they are working on. And then it's about women to be more visible, to be more confident, to go after her dream or after the position that she wants. So it's on us as well. Like, we don't have to rely only on governments for this.
I mean, as I said, I think it all comes to the job itself, the industry, and the function or the clients. Yeah. So, for example, we have the customer service departments, and we know we are dealing with a lot of women. So it came naturally that the customer service team, we wanted them to be women, because when you are hearing a woman as such, she can trust her, she can understand what she's talking about skin, psychologically. While for some functions, then you would need more of men. For example, when it comes to the production area, where there is a heavy lifting, so that's where, I mean, it comes really naturally. Definitely at a certain level, that's when it becomes gender equal, like more marketing or finance. That's those functions are more gender equal, and then you just look at the right person. You don't see whether she's a woman or he is a man. You just look at the experience, at the knowledge, at the expertise.
Sure. So I think the panel.
I have to say though, I actually disagree with what you've just said there. Coming from a cosmetics company, actually in our factories, we do have a lot of women lifting things and doing manual work. All of our products are handmade. So yeah, actually, that isn't part of our recruitment process. Even our customer service, I wouldn't ever look for a woman over a man to perform a customer service role. Like empathy and listening skills are the top 2 skills that you need to be able to do that role, not if you're a male or female, because you can teach skincare training to men or women. That's my opinion, and not to be, but that's just how I see it. To me, skill has nothing to do with gender. Like training, I think that's the thing. I mean, yeah, okay, lifting a barrel, lifting 20 kg versus 10 kg. Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. However, there's still a lot of roles within manufacturing. And actually, we've just been featured it's in the UK, but in our local press in the UK about, senior managers in our manufacturing business.
I think it depends as well on the cultures. For me, when I'm talking about Izil, my main market right now is the Middle East. So when we are talking about women, here, Arab women, we're talking about a different mentality, different kind of, because it's not about the skills. I'm not saying the customer service male cannot do the job. I'm thinking from a customer point of view where she's going to feel more comfortable. And that's where we are going for female. And because my product today is driven towards female, that's where I'm skewed. Where you are, your clientele, you want them to feel comfortable and you want to listen to them.
So you're going to need quotas for men in your company.
Looks like it, the quotas for men. But just on the other side, just on the other side of things, right? Like we discussed about the whole diversity, and it looks like the panel is in agreement that inclusion over diversity might be like a better strategy where you don't say no to, skills. Doesn't matter men or women, no discrimination. So very interesting points mentioned here, and like you're completely in agreement that it is amazing that we are exposed to so many diverse cultures. That's why we probably are better aware of how to interact with different cultures, and unlike a lot of places where it's unicultured, there is a lack of awareness there, and that also needs to come about when you're talking about gender, which is the discussion we're having today, right? So in terms of an HR conversation, the second side of that, the previous question that I had is, if you have a man and if you have a woman who come to you where their skill sets are very similar, what they're asking for is very similar, however the woman comes with certain demands, which include, she needs a menstruation leave, like period leave, and then there's a maternity leave, and then she needs to take care of her kids, right? The skills are same, what they're asking for is the same, what they can offer is the same. But in this situation, as an HR manager, wouldn't you be leaning a little more towards the male candidate because they're not coming with all of these demands, which are not wrong, by the way, but they are additional demands, aren't they? Let me ask you first.
I think demands is a bit of a funny word to put on it. I don't know. I mean, no, I wouldn't be thinking about those things. I think if that's what somebody would demand of me, I would think, is this the right fit for my business, if I'm being honest with you, because that's just a weird way to ask for those things. Like there's legal obligations as an employer, what you must give your your employees. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a strange one. No, I mean, I wouldn't pick one or the other based on that. In fact, we're 75% women in our business. So naturally our maternity costs, our insurance, all of those things that go with it are naturally high, and we carry those costs as a business. But honestly, again, financial wise, I wouldn't even tell you what that costs us as a business. It doesn't interest me whatsoever. I just accept it, that I can run my business in this way, and it's done for the right reasons. Like I think we want to be seen as a fair employer, giving people a fair chance to earn a fair living. And I think,
as part of the conversation, I will ask, have you got children? What age are they? And so on and so forth. How are you going to manage this job? If they've applied for a full-time job, I want to know. And so that conversation happens, because for the man, and I know that may be unequal, but that's how it is. You won't be asking that question. I mean, whether we should or not is another thing, but that the onus on the responsibility of children does still, across the world, lay with women. So we will then discuss it, flexible hours, obviously, by law, maternity leave. So that's never something that someone would bring up. But it is about how do they manage their work-life balance? How can they be true to both positions? And we try and find ways around it.
Right. I'll tell you why I asked this though, because there are certain countries that have introduced the whole period leave, right? So you can take 2 days off every month, so around the time of your month. And then, so from, I think it was Finland, when somebody came to this region where we don't have that at the minute, and they asked for it.
I think that's, I'm sorry to say, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, for heaven's sake, we're putting ourselves, if we do that, we're saying, poor us, we're victims, you know, we have to go through this. For goodness sake.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
I'm
if it's a medical
old-fashioned.
reason, if you're a person and your individual basis is when I'm medically sick, I can't walk, I'm whatever it is, then that's different. It's a different conversation. Of course, you want to support somebody through sickness and ill health and make sure that they're being looked after. But I think I'm a woman, have a period every month. It doesn't affect me. Maybe I'm lucky, but I would say probably 80% of the population, you know, and maybe there's times in your life when it will affect you more and not more. But again, I think it's about relationship with your manager, you know, your employment with the business. There's all sorts of things come into that situation. But I think, yeah, I agree. I think to demand 2 days a week off.
I will add one more thing.
Come up.
The first thing that we do when we're recruiting is to make sure that there's a culture fit. Because once you make sure that they are passionate about because if you're passionate, you're not going to be asking for things that you don't really need. So if you make sure that the person is passionate about the business, like now, what I have a woman that have 3 kids that are working around the clock to make sure that we launch yesterday because they want to, not because they have to, there's a contract. And this is why the question asking about, at the end, this is we're following the laws 100%, but first we hire for culture and then we look at skills and other things, and irrelevant if it's man or woman or
I did a similar panel where there was a male HR person from a marketplace, a very popular marketplace in this region, and he actually happened to mention that if this is a clause, and we'll be happy to add that in the contract depending on the person. So it's very interesting to see how things are.
That's the beauty of being a woman entrepreneur. We understand what they are going through. The man is still like something for them. Oh my God, you know, like
we've all been through it.
Yeah,
We've
we
all
are
been
going
through
through
it,
it. Yeah.
and we know, and you know, we will have family members, friends. Some suffer badly than others, and you know that's we accept that. But it shouldn't be. You know, I really think women need to be careful not to become victims or demanding things just because they're female. No. We demand things because we're people, we're human beings, not because we're women.
My response to that would be, honestly, like, we care about all employees. If you've got an individual basis that you feel you need extra support on something.
But another thing that we mentioned or we discussed was with the whole terminologies. You mentioned that, you know, we are people, we're not men, we're not women. You've said that we're not men, we're not women. Then I want to talk about the terminologies. We've heard conferences that talk about mompreneurs and shepreneurs, and it sort of puts them in a bracket saying that, you know, she's the best female business leader, exactly. And that's like she's the best leader, you know, in retail or in whatever category. So what do you feel about these terminologies even today, although there are a lot of female doctors?
I really don't want a label. I'm myself. I'm here. I'm a human being. I'm honoured to be part of the human race. You know, we're very fortunate. And I've always felt, and I come from generations ago, that men and women are equal, but we're different. Yes. You know, we have different talents, but we have different also challenges. And that's where you start, on an equal footing. And I owe that to my father, who, you know, gave me that sense of worth in myself as a person, not because I was his daughter, but because I was his child.
I had the same experience. I come from a family where 2 boys, 2 girls. And until I was maybe 20, I realized that there were gender differences. But because I was extremely passionate about it a few years ago. Now I realize that having lists like this, even though if it's for women entrepreneur or women in business, it just pushes younger women to realize that there's no ceiling, and at the end the ceiling is in your head, and you can decide to break this glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. So the reason, I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us, but the reason we're here today is just to show younger entrepreneurs that there's no difference between men and women. You know.
Can I just ask our wonderful panel here today, did any of you ever feel that you couldn't do something because you're a woman?
Quite the opposite, actually.
Ah, there we go then. That
To be
answers
honest,
your
quite
question.
the opposite.
We don't
I
need
mean,
to be have labels. You know, we do not need little labels on our foreheads so that we're recognised. Oh, we better give that woman an easy go. In fact, they probably need to be tougher in some ways, because I think we are a force to be reckoned with. You know, all the entrepreneurs I've met, men and women, they tend to have that drive that you can sort of see that, you know, vision. And I mean, you think about people like Anita Roddick, Joe Malone, Laura Ashley, you know, great entrepreneurs who all started in their kitchen, what they were doing, and then went on to launch global businesses.
But very supported by their husbands.
Yes.
Actually, both of those had their Anita Roddick's husband was finance. I think Joe Malone's husband was also her. So it's about a powerful team as well in those entrepreneurs. And I think the fact that it's a husband, okay, but you know, could equally be another man, I guess. You know, it doesn't have to be that. But yeah, those powerful partnerships. I mean, the owners of Lusher, husband and wife.
But do men think about that then? Like, do men think about having a powerful wife, or, you know,
Yes,
it's going to be
I think
difficult?
it works, exactly. So entrepreneurs who are male will always have huge support, I believe, from their partner. Yeah.
Because it's all consuming.
I have so many more topics to cover. Unfortunately, we're running short on time. So perhaps another session very, very soon when all of you all are available. But thank you to everyone who's joined us here today. Thank you for adding so much value, for all the insights you shared and those candid opinions. It was truly enjoyable and truly informative. And thank you to all the viewers who've tuned in. We will be back again with another session very, very soon. See you then. Thank you.